Kristen.
I'm Miss Kate.
I'm Miss Amy.
Come along and join us for Oh, hey everybody, welcome to Christ Kids TV. It is so sunny and bright and light outside. I love it. I needed my sunglasses. That bright light reminds me of the light of Jesus and how lucky we are to have that light to follow. So we definitely need to start with a prayer. So hold your hands and bow your heads. Dear God, thank you for the light of Jesus. Help us remember to follow his example and share the light of Jesus everywhere we go. And all God's children said, amen. Have a bright, fun week, my friends. See ya.
Silent flocks by night, behold, throughout the heavens, there shone a holy light. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Feared and trembled when low above the earth rang out the angel chorus that hailed our Savior's birth. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born.
It's time to learn the memory verse.
Hi, I'm Declan.
And I'm Caitlin, and this is our alphabet play.
Today we're going to do the memory verse for Luke 2:10. The angel said to them, "Fear not, for behold, I bring good news of great joy that will be for all the people." Bye!
Pastor time.
Pastor time.
Happy time.
Hey everybody, Pastor Ryan here. Today we're continuing the story about Jesus when he was a little bitty baby. And we hear about these magi, wise men. Sometimes we call them kings. And they traveled from really far away to find, well, they didn't even know what. Let's just think about their position for a second. They're looking up at the sky, and they're looking at the stars, and they do this a lot. They look at the stars, and all of a sudden there's this new star, and it's shining way kind of low in the horizon and far off in the distance, and they say to themselves, "This is wild, there's a whole new star. There must be something that made this star appear. There must be some really big event that happened in our world that made this star appear in the world." So they started walking, and as they walked, the star started to rise in the horizon from where they were. And so they kept walking closer and closer and closer, and they ended up to a place where it was almost above them. So they went to the king of that region, and his name was Herod, and they said, hey, we found this other really special guy who must have been born because this whole star was born, and we're gonna call him a king. And so eventually they leave Herod and they go until eventually the star is right above them, and they say, it's here, and they looked around and they found Jesus and Mary and Joseph, and they gave this guy, this little baby Jesus, the gifts that they brought to him. And what's amazing about the story, and there's so many things amazing about the story, is these humans, these magi, these kings, these wise men, when they left, they didn't know what they were gonna find. When they left their land and they walked for months, they didn't know what they were going to encounter. Would it be bandits or robbers? Would it be helpful people or hurtful people? They didn't know what was going to happen, but they knew without a shadow of a doubt, they knew that God was involved. And that was enough. That was enough for them, because if God was involved, they wanted to be a part of it. And at the end, where the star finally was right above them and they saw what they were looking for, what they came to find was God himself in Jesus as a little baby in that manger. Those wise men, they gave the little gifts that they have, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. Really, they received the greatest gift of all, a relationship with God who gave them joy. Joy of being in his presence and God's presence. That joy lasted them the rest of their life. And that's the joy that you and I can have as we follow God, maybe not with a star, but through the Bible, through his word, through our life together at church. We follow God. But we don't know where it's going to go. And I promise you, it will have twists and turns. And I give you this one more promise. This one comes from God, so you can take it to the bank. If we follow Jesus, we will have joy all our life and beyond. Blessings.
There's no greater power than the power of our God. There's no greater power than the power of our God. I sing the mighty power of God that made the mountains rise, that spread the flood.
Hello friends, I'm Miss Amy, and it is the end of the holiday season. Maybe you've put away your tree and taken down the decorations. Your visitors have probably gone home and you're probably back at school. But even though we're moving into January and the new year with all that Christmas joy still in our hearts, there's one more thing we need to learn about for the Christmas story, and that is the wise men in Epiphany. Today is Epiphany, and that is a celebration of the day that the wise men, or the magi, or the kings, were finally able to meet baby Jesus, the new King of the Jews. Pastor Ryan told us a little bit about their story, that long, long journey following a bright star in the sky all the way to meet and worship the new King that was promised. And that while they gave presents to Jesus, they got the best present instead, which was getting to know Jesus and having God in their lives. But there is more to the story, so let's watch this video and then we'll talk about it.
The story of Christmas, Jesus and the wise men. This is Jesus.
Booyah!
Jesus is the Son of God who would grow up to do amazing things. His parents on earth were Mary and Joseph.
Hello.
Jesus was born in a barn because there was no room for him anywhere else in Bethlehem. Bethlehem was part of Judea, an area that was ruled by a king named Herod. King Herod was in Jerusalem when some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking,
Excuse me.
"Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." When Herod heard that there was another king born in Judea, he was very upset, as was everyone else in Jerusalem.
Yeah. Not you.
So Herod called all the important priests and Jews together and asked them where this king was supposed to be born. The Jews knew that their king would eventually come, and it was always told to them that the King of the Jews, the Savior of the world, would be born in Bethlehem. So they told that to King Herod. Then King Herod thought of a way to trick the wise men. So he called a private meeting with them and learned from them when the King of the Jews' star first appeared.
Oh, good.
And then King Herod told the wise men, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me, so that I can go and worship him too."
Okay. Hey, on your way.
But secretly, Herod wanted to know where the King of the Jews was so he could get rid of him. So the wise men went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where Jesus was, and the wise men were filled with joy.
Woohoo!
They went into the house and saw Mary and Jesus.
Hello. Oh, look. Wow.
And they bowed down and worshiped Jesus.
Wait.
They gave him special gifts fit for the king that he was: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then God warned them in a dream to not go home through Jerusalem, where King Herod was, but God told them to go home a different way. So they did. And then an angel appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up." The angel told Joseph to go to Egypt with Mary and Jesus because Herod was looking to kill Jesus. That very night, Joseph left for Egypt with Jesus and Mary. They stayed in Egypt until Herod was gone, and it was safe for them to go home to Israel. When they returned, an angel warned them about the new ruler of Judea, who was Herod's son.
This way.
So Joseph and his family went to the region of Galilee and found their new home in the town of Nazareth.
Look good?
Yep.
We'll take it.
Where Jesus would grow up and eventually do all the amazing things God had planned for him to do.
So who were the wise men? Pastor Ryan called them magi or kings. We know that they were leaders in their countries, and they were very smart because they studied all kinds of things like the stars and read all kinds of scrolls and books and learned as much as they could. In all that reading, they probably heard about Elijah and Micah and the prophecy that a great Messiah would be born. So when that star started to shine brighter than any other, they knew something amazing was happening and they wanted to see for themselves. So they walked and rode camels and ended up with Herod, the king in Jerusalem. Now Herod, my friends, was not a good guy. He was nervous and jealous and didn't want to give up his power, and that made him do some pretty awful things. He lied and he tricked people. He even hurt people. But the wise men were very wise. That's another word for smart. And they didn't fall for his tricks, and instead they listened to God when God told them in a dream to go home a different way to protect Jesus. They knew, even though they were not Jewish themselves, that the King of the Jews was special. Remember last week when we talked about the shepherds and that showed us how Jesus came for everyone, smelly shepherds included? Well, the wise men coming to worship Jesus shows us that Jesus came for people who were Jewish like him, but also people who aren't Jewish, the Gentiles like the wise men. So that's why today Epiphany is kind of a big deal. Jesus came to rescue the Jewish people, but he also came to rescue the Gentiles. He came for everyone. So let's get back to the story. The wise men traveled all the way. They saw Herod. They met baby Jesus. They brought him presents. We still do presents for Christmas and birthdays, just like the wise men. And then they went home a different way to keep Jesus safe from Herod. Then God told Joseph to take Jesus and Mary to Egypt instead of going home. And that's why they ended up in Egypt and then in Nazareth, where Jesus grew up. Whew, that is a lot of information. So let's go over the highlights one more time to remember the important parts about this piece of the Christmas story. The wise men saw a great, bright star that told them a king was born, and they followed it all the way to Jesus and didn't get sidetracked by Herod, the bad guy. And this is important because it's another example of how Jesus is different and how his love for all people, like shepherds and Gentiles and me and you, is important and great. And this is great news that gives us so much joy in our hearts, not only at Christmas time, but all year long. So don't be sad that the tree is down and the decorations are put away and that you're back in school. Instead, remember that the joy that comes from Jesus lasts all day, every day, all year long, forever. Have a great week. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us this week on Christ Kids TV.